The SEC is going to a 9-game conference schedule, and boy, it is about time. How this affects Tennessee in 26 and beyond, a lot of fun to talk about here on a Friday, Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Eric Cain here, host of Locked On Vols. Appreciate you guys for being here. A little bonus content here on a Friday afternoon. Appreciate you making Locked On Vols every single morning, your first listen, your first watch each and every single day. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network where it is your team every single day. Again, already had a regular Friday show, and I had Rivalry Thursday last night doing some high school football coverage, so obviously had the show done early in the afternoon before the breaking news came out. And really wanted to touch on this because I'm going to have a crossover currently on the books right now scheduled for Monday. Going to catch up with the Locked On Syracuse guys. And I wanted to touch on this because this is huge. This is important. This is very important. The SEC going to a 9-game conference schedule. And Ross Dellinger kind of put it out there earlier Thursday, like, hey, this has been a topic. Hey, the SEC is leaning into doing this. Hey, this could happen not just in the future, in the near future. Again, we've been talking about this for 3 years. Like, of course, this has been an assumption. Of course, this has been talking points and everything. But it's like, okay, will the SEC ever get around to actually committing to doing it? And Ross Dellinger put that out there like earlier on Thursday and pretty much said, hey, the SEC is leaning towards doing this. And lo and behold, the breaking news from the Southeastern Conference came out later that afternoon, really early evening, we'll call it. And the SEC is going to a 9-game conference schedule beginning in 2026. So how that affects Tennessee, we'll get to that here in a moment. But here are the basics, right? The SEC will continue with a single standing non-divisional structure. Each school will play 3 annual opponents focused on maintaining many traditional rivalries. Each team's remaining 6 games will rotate among the remaining conference schools, and each team will face every other SEC program at least once every 2 years, and every opponent home and away in 4 years. That's all cool, right? And I think this is for the fans, right? You know, the fans will get to see more SEC teams, will get to travel to more SEC programs and more SEC cities and markets, and that's exciting, right, for the fans. I always kind of laugh when I think about it from the player, like, oh, well, if you, under this format, if you go to a school, you're going to get to play every single team in the SEC, in the span of 2 years, be traveling to every single venue by the time your 4 years are done. I mean, hardly anybody's staying at a college for 4 years anymore, right? But I do like this. Again, the 3-6 model was always my favorite back when this was first brought up in 2023 or 2022, whenever it was. It's been a minute. Like we talked about this ad nauseum. And so the great debate will begin, and we'll talk about this here in a moment. Who will Tennessee's 3 opponents be? We pretty much know a slam dunk who 2 of them are going to be, but what's that third one going to be? But before I even get into that, I want to talk about again, I think the Southeastern Conference from top to bottom, and I know the Big Ten's a good football program, a good football conference. I'm not saying it's not, clearly. Last 2 national championships, check the last 13 before that, but I think the Big Ten's a really good football conference. I do think, and you can make the case for this at the SEC as well a little bit, but it's very top heavy in the Big Ten, very top heavy in the Big Ten. I think through and through, by and large, 1 to 16. I understand there are some bottom dwellers in the SEC, but I think top to bottom, it's the toughest strength-wise of a conference that there is in college football. So what I'm about to say, don't think I'm like straight up downing the SEC, because I think the SEC is the best football conference available, okay? But as a conference, you can't sit there and pound your chest and say we're the best of the best. It just means more, right? It just means more. Then why wouldn't you go to a 9-game conference slate, right? You've been saying that for years. But you had the ACC, you had the Big Ten, all playing non-conference games. So when the great debate is the SEC is what's holding us back from a college football playoff expansion, why not go ahead and go to a 9-game conference schedule? It just means more, right? About dang time. Even Greg Sankey chimes in. He said, adding a 9th SEC game underscores our university's commitment to delivering the most competitive football schedule in the nation. This format protects rivalries, increases competitive balance, and paired with our requirement to play an additional power opponent, ensures the SEC will be well prepared and to compete for the success in the college football playoffs. Okay, this is what I wanted to say right here. Quote from Greg Sankey, the SEC has established itself as the leader in delivering the most compelling football schedule in college athletics. Fans will see traditional rivalries preserved, new matchups more frequently, and the level of competition unmatched across the nation. So that's great. You're at a 9-game conference schedule now, right? We can finally move on with an expanded playoff. You know, the Big Ten's throwing out 27 teams, right? 27 teams. Let's get to 27 or 34 teams in the college football playoff, right? That's the Big Ten's ingenious idea earlier this week, right? They won a 16-team playoff. It's nothing but posturing. Okay, it's nothing but posturing. But they were not willing to go until the SEC would add that game, that ninth conference game. The SEC was never going to add that ninth conference game unless ESPN ponied up a lot more money and the playoff expanded, right? They were never going to add a conference game with it just being at 12 right now because, again, you're working against yourself. I mean, the athletic directors recommended it. The university chancellors and presidents approved it. Head coaches didn't have a say in this. I mean, if you go and poll all 16 head coaches in the Southeastern Conference, I'll say the majority of which would say they would want to remain in an 8-game conference schedule. You know, it's a great debate. We can continue to have it. I mean, there are coaches taking shots at the SEC and the Big Ten that, you know, it looks great on a graphic, but then you have Franklin up there saying going, you know, 9-game conference schedule. That was probably the silliest thing, the thing that hurts ourselves the most. And so he's been on record for that, saying that, but, you know, not a lot of publicity has been given in that regard. So anyway, 9-game conference schedule. That's good. I found this interesting. Of course, the SEC, they've been playing 8 conference games ever since it expanded from 12 teams to 14 teams in 1992. 10 teams to 12 teams in 1992 with the addition of Arkansas and South Carolina. That's when it went into divisions as well. The SEC played 7 conference games per year from 1988 to 1991, 6 games a year from 1974 to 1987. Prior to 1974, this is something we'll have to ask a little Throwback Thursday segment with Noah Taylor next week. Prior to 1974, there was no uniform requirement for the number of conference games to be played by each school. Most schools played around 6 or 7 league contests per year. Yikes, that would go into the great debate too as well, right? Say you had 2 undefeated teams finishing 1 and 2 in the polls. You know, that number 3 team leapfrogged the number 2 team after that bowl loss. But this team played 7 SEC games and this team played only 6, right? I mean, that was probably a talking point to be able to say, well, this team deserves to be a national champion. So anyway, that's the greater, bigger picture here. I'm really, really glad that Tennessee and the SEC is going to 9 conference games because in the era of revenue sharing, in the era of season tickets increased by 4%, that was announced earlier this week. NIL demands. I mean, it just continues to be more and more and more for the average fan to go and watch their favorite team at Neyland Stadium or at Thompson-Boling Arena, the Food City Center, or wherever it is. They're asking so much more of the fans. So having another SEC game, the potential of getting another SEC game, a home game every single year, that's exciting. Of course, now with 9 SEC games, this is going to be a split in the conference, right? You know, some teams only have 4 home SEC games. Some teams will have 5 home SEC games. So that's going to have to rotate on an annual basis as well. That's something we got to consider. But I'm glad that you're at least getting another game. You're at least getting another awesome. You're not getting another cupcake is what I'm trying to say. You're replacing a cupcake for the most part. So, and you're replacing a cupcake because per the press release, they're still keeping the qualifier in there that you got to play a non-conference in the Power 4. But here's where I think it's interesting as well. SEC teams are required to schedule at least one additional high-quality non-conference game from the Atlantic Coast, the Big Ten, or the Big 12 conferences, or Notre Dame each season. The SEC will continue to evaluate its policies to ensure the continued scheduling of high-quality non-conference opponents. So how would you define high quality is what I want to know. This is another great debate. Is Syracuse high quality? Well, it's a 10-win season last year. It's from the ACC. Yeah, that should be high quality, right? What about Northwestern? Well, Northwestern's from the Big Ten. That's high quality, right? I mean, Virginia a couple years ago. Virginia's in the ACC. That's high quality. I mean, is it just the qualifier of a Power 4 or Notre Dame? Or does it have to be you have to schedule an upper echelon team from that conference? There's no way to police that. So again, high quality non-conference from Atlantic Coast, Big 10 or Big 12. You just got to play one of those teams in those conferences, right? And that will fulfill that requirement. So this also protects Kentucky, Louisville. This also protects South Carolina, Clemson. This protects Georgia, Georgia Tech. This protects Florida, Florida State. So it's a way to get 9 games, but also protect those in-state rivalries that some of these programs have, been playing for quite some time. So again, a lot to talk about. I'm really excited. I'm kind of all over the place. But let's get into the great debate on who should that third permanent opponent be for the University of Tennessee. There's been no updates on when this will be announced, what's going to go on in that regard, but there is going to be a great debate, and we're going to have the first edition of that debate right here on Locked On Ball. Stay tuned. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for the bold predictions and preseason hunches for just 24 hours. FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions, so whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champion before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Also, college football as well. You got those future Heisman, conference winners. You've got college football playoffs. You got so many futures that you can play, not only in the NFL, but in college football as well, that's kicking off this weekend. So visit FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. And a reminder, that one day is August the 26th. FanDuel, it is where you can play your game. So big shout out to FanDuel. Big shout out to Rougiet. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis, and maybe you even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiet Ready. Rougiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rougiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue, kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. Head on over to Rougiet.com/LockedOnCollege and use the promo code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off today. That's Rougiet.com, RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege, and use that promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit Rougiet website for full safety information. Again, check it all out at Rougiet. All right, guys, little bonus content here on a Friday afternoon. Again, the big news coming out Thursday evening is the Southeastern Conference moving away from 8 conference games to 9, and a move that's only been talked about for the last 3 years, right? By golly, it's about time to get it done. And with this, again, dominoes will fall. The college football playoffs will expand for sure now, because the SEC, now that it has a 9th conference game, are okay with expanding the playoffs, okay? ESPN probably ponied up some more money to make Greg Sankey want to do this and go to 9 conference games. The Big Ten can stop with their nonsense and trying to play 30 teams in the college football playoff and get back to the 16 that the whole posturing move earlier this week was all about, right? So we can finally move on with our lives. They can come to an agreement December the 1st for what the college football playoff expansion is going to look like. Because now that the SEC is getting its money, all intents and purposes, the assumptions there, the SEC is going to get its money to make this move to 9 conference games, make monetary sense, right? They'll have an expanded field, that way you can still get more teams in. So it makes sense in that regard. So here's the question. Again, at 3-6 model was always my favorite. The 1-7 for the 8 game was blah, who gives a crap? It's boring. Tennessee Vanderbilt, boring. 3-6 means you're preserving Tennessee and Vanderbilt, which has played, it's the oldest rivalry in this series. Tennessee and Vanderbilt, they played dating back to 1892. Tennessee and Vanderbilt have played football games dating back to 1892. They played 119 games all told. So you would think that that's the most games against an opponent for Tennessee. Actually, no. Tennessee and Kentucky have played one more game. Tennessee and Kentucky have played 120 games dating back to 1893. So Tennessee and Vanderbilt is the oldest at 1892. Tennessee and Kentucky has actually played the most times dating back to 1893. Tennessee's played Alabama 107 times since 1901, and the Vols have played Georgia, Florida, and Auburn 54 times each. So, with knowing you're going to protect Tennessee and Vanderbilt in state, oldest since 1892, and they played 119 games all told. That's probably going to be in the 1, 2, 3 tier. That's number 1. Okay, Tennessee Vanderbilt, that will be protected by the Southeastern Conference, number 1. Tennessee Alabama, the third Saturday in October. They played over 100 times. They played dating back to 1901. It's a historic rivalry in college football. It's got its own name. The third Saturday in October. Tennessee Alabama will be protected, number 2. Okay, and this is why I love the 3-6, because the 1-7 you weren't guaranteed to play Alabama every single year, but in the 3-6, barring some unforeseen miracle of an upset, Tennessee and Alabama will continue playing every single year. So the great debate comes in here at who should be that third opponent. Well, I've already laid out why I think it should be Kentucky, because history says that Tennessee-Kentucky is a bigger rivalry by number of games than that of Tennessee-Vanderbilt. Again, 120 games played between the two programs dating back to 1893. Games against Kentucky, games against Vanderbilt have taken place in 3 different centuries. Yeah. My vote is Kentucky. You know why? Because it also has a name. It's not like the third Saturday in October, but it's the Border Bowl. It's the Battle of the Beer Barrel. I know that's not been brought back yet, but come on. You're serving alcohol in stadiums. You're running alcohol advertisements. Everybody's making money off alcohol, right? So why not bring back the beer barrel in this rivalry, right? And have some fun with it, because last I checked, college football is still fun. My vote is Kentucky because, again, Tennessee has played at Kentucky for so long. Now, would I be on board with Florida? Yeah. I mean, again, I've told you guys my background growing up, and the big game for like my age group, Tennessee, Florida, right? I mean, Tennessee, Alabama, it was always one-sided. Tennessee crushed Alabama, or Alabama crushed Tennessee. And I know the 90s were tough in that regard with Tennessee, Florida. I know from 2006 on was very tough. With 2006 to 2015 or 16 was tough for Tennessee, Florida, but at least on Tennessee's side. But that was a big game, you know. So I would be fine with Tennessee, Florida. I don't think it's going to be Tennessee, Florida. I know it's not going to be Tennessee, Georgia. That's why I think if it is Kentucky, then Tennessee fans should say, okay, thanks. See you, bye. Say, okay, I'll take that. Thank you, bye. Because you got one tough team in Alabama. You've got one historically crappy team in Vanderbilt. And then you have a team in Kentucky that you have absolutely dominated in your series history. You say, thank you, have a nice day. So I'll be intrigued to see if that is what it's going to look like. That would be my vote, preserving regional, preserving history, preserving the namesake of the game. That all means something to me. Andy Staples over at On3 actually said that his prediction, he predicted all 16 teams and the 3 permanent opponents. He predicted it's going to be Alabama, Vanderbilt, and Florida, which is very interesting. The Tennessee-Florida game is not that big of a rivalry in the historical aspect because it's only dated back to 1992. Again, Tennessee's played Auburn 54 times. Like, it was Tennessee-Auburn before that. I would be surprised if it's Florida. I could see it being somebody like South Carolina. Remember when all this was the whole thing a couple years ago when, you know, we were talking about the 3-6 model, and then we were talking about the financials, and if you had to put the SEC split it in half in Tier 1 and Tier 2, like what teams in Tier 1 would be there based on historical success and money that they generate, and then who's in Tier 2 based off historical success and the lack of money they generate. And you had all these different things, right? And you know, Tennessee was often being linked to South Carolina to being that third team, right? And I think that would be kind of a happy median. South Carolina cycles up every now and again. South Carolina, like take this year for an example. They were, you know, predicted, 5th in the SEC. Got a good quarterback, got a good defensive line, Shane Beamer. He's good enough to coach in this league. I think South Carolina would be a happy median. South Carolina likely to win the national championship, to be a contender for the national championship year in and year out? No. Could they knock on the door to the CFP pretty much every year? Yeah, they can be in that conversation, in my opinion. Sure. You know, 8-9 wins in the SEC, right? Depending on where that third, fourth loss is. Alabama nearly got in last year with 3 losses. So, yeah, I think South Carolina would be kind of a happy median. But Andy Staples had South Carolina's 3 opponents being Missouri, Ole Miss, and Kentucky. I'll go through real quick. Andy Staples of On3, his prediction of the SEC annual opponents: Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, LSU, Arkansas. None of the original SEC members here. John Neighbors actually pointed that out on Twitter, Locked On Razorbacks host. Missouri, Texas, Texas A&M. No original SEC teams in there. That's interesting. Auburn, Alabama, Georgia, Vanderbilt. Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Oklahoma. I wouldn't be happy with that. Georgia, Auburn, Florida, and Kentucky. Pretty easy right now, right? Like Kentucky's 3 annual opponents: Georgia, Mississippi State, South Carolina. LSU's opponents: Alabama, Ole Miss, Texas A&M. Mississippi State, goodness gracious, how easy is this? Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, Kentucky. I mean, it's very similar to what I want for Tennessee, right? But Alabama historically has been much better than Ole Miss. Ole Miss has been awesome under Lane Kiffin. I get that. Missouri, Arkansas, South Carolina, Oklahoma. Oklahoma's 3 opponents: Missouri, Florida, Texas. Ole Miss's 3 opponents: Mississippi State, LSU, and South Carolina. I just realized they used 2 different LSU logos on this graphic, and it just bugged me. South Carolina would be Missouri, Ole Miss, Kentucky. Tennessee's, of course, what we've talked about. Andy Staples believes Alabama, Florida, Vanderbilt. Texas, Texas and Texas A&M are going to stay together. Texas and Oklahoma are going to stay together. So Texas is very much in a similar boat as Tennessee. Like, who 2 of them are going to be. The only question is, what's that third going to be? For Texas, Andy Staples predicts A&M, Arkansas, Oklahoma. For A&M, he predicts LSU, Arkansas, Texas. And for Vanderbilt, he predicts Auburn, Tennessee, and Mississippi State. All right, so what do you think? What are your predictions for these other teams? But who do you think is going to be Tennessee's third common opponent? Remember, the SEC didn't release anything on when they're going to make that announcement. I've seen some chatter about December. I don't know if that's right or not. But there's going to be great debates, and it's going to be fun. And I'm just glad that the SEC is finally getting on with the real world and going to nine conference games. Because if you want to beat your chest and say you're better than everybody, which I do believe the SEC is better than everybody, I do believe that. But I also thought it was kind of embarrassing when you weren't playing a 9th game when everybody else was. So that's just my opinion. Surely, I know that not everybody will agree with just my opinion. Who do you think? Third opponent for Tennessee, and do you think it's slam dunk that Vanderbilt and Alabama are going to be 2 of those opponents? I want to hear from you guys at _Cainer and at Lockdown Vols. I appreciate you guys for being here. Little bonus content here on a Friday. We've done 7 shows this week. Did a show on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then another one Friday afternoon. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll be back on Monday, a crossover with Locked On Syracuse, getting set for game week. This is Locked On Vols.